more reasons for a Thanksgiving rally fueled until the end of the year. He thinks S&P can reach 6,100 by then. Tom Lee joins us this morning, Fundstrat Global Advisors, head of research and a CNBC contributor. Tom, great to have you.
Good morning.
Happy Thanksgiving in advance.
Thank you.
Write about some clearing events that we've gotten through, right?
Yes.
One is clearly best into Treasury, and then NVIDIA's earnings, too, kind of remove some uncertainty?
Yes, and we could tell the market was sort of holding their breath on both, because once NVIDIA reported, the markets began to levitate. And, of course, we're seeing the market reaction today to Treasury Secretary. These are all both good events, but also showing you there's been a lot of cash on the sidelines. Which is why we're rallying.
Right.
Yeah.
Although making a pretty good yield, I imagine. What's the impetus to leave those sidelines if rates can hold these levels overall?
Well, I think one thing we have to keep in mind is there's $7 trillion of cash on the sidelines, which I think in general portfolios are overweighted and risk-free. And I don't know if it's going to be 5% 2 years from now. So I think investors, as they're planning ahead and they're seeing an economy that's resilient, I think the case for equities is still very strong right now.
Have you done any work on earnings for next year or the year after?
We're actually working on it now. Our outlook comes out December 12th.
All right. So we'll check back with you then.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, what sectors do you favor at this point?
Well, I think the template that we think makes sense is buy things that either benefit from a dovish Fed or a Trump White House, which is small caps. Cyclicals like the financials, the regional banks and industrials, and of course crypto, especially Bitcoin and some of the proxies like MicroStrategy and Semler Scientific.
But did you hear what we were just talking about? Can the Trump administration get away with the pro-growth policies and a dovish Fed at the same time? Because some of them work against the Fed being able to cut rates.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say the market is very skeptical at the moment. That's what we're hearing from our clients. But that also means that's room for positive surprise. And I think one thing to be mindful of is the Fed can be dovish even if there's resilient growth as long as inflationary pressures and expectations remain intact. And so far, that's been the case.
Has it, though? We're seeing a little bit firmer core readings on inflation, and I guess it depends on what he does with tariffs.
Yeah, but if you look at survey expectations, whether the Federal Reserve Survey or UMich, we're seeing 5, even 6-year lows on inflation expectations. So we're back to pre-pandemic levels from what consumers see. And then if oil falls, as you know, that sort of pushes down the inflation forward curve.
On the 1-year expectations, right?
Yeah.
Fives have not been as well behaved.
That's right. And, those surveys are notoriously a little funky because if you look at the range of answers and the actual data, some people put 1,000% as the survey answer. So they can tend to skew the actual medians.
Right. Meantime, there is this school of thought that commodities are not suggesting rampant inflation or a return to a double-top CPI. You got Europe increasingly exporting disinflationary narratives, certainly China.
Yes,
right?
That's right. And I think there are many people who thought inflation would pick up because of tariffs. But as you know, it's not clear really what ends up being implemented. And if we get milder tariffs, that's actually less inflationary pressures.
Page 1 of the Times over the weekend was about companies elbowing each other to get in front of the president-elect to make their case to be carved out of tariffs.
Yes.
And then this morning, Reuters has a piece on the farm industry, again, looking to be exempted from deportationary efforts. How much policy risk do you think is going to be embedded in the next year at least?
Well, I think this is what investors are concerned about, because we know that there was a campaign that was run on tariffs and deportations, but as you know, those can be very harmful to the economy. So I think that having the right cabinet picks can actually get us into sort of the right blend of sort of outcomes, and I think that's what the market's starting to price in.
Meaning you've been impressed with the picks so far?
Yes, I think not only have I been impressed, but we can tell from our client feedback that the markets really like this.
We're up over 25% in the S&P this year. We only have a few weeks left in the year. What were we up last year?
Over 20.
I mean, what does history say about the ability to put another year of significant gains after two like that?
It has happened because, we're talking the late 90s, then 97, then we're 98, 99. But realistically, for the audience here, 20% is not a realistic expectation for the S&P. I mean, S&P return should just mirror earnings growth, which is probably double-digit. And then they should look for opportunities where there's undervalued sectors, like whether it's the financials or small caps, where they can get more than double-digit gains. But I agree. 20% a year is, very
these
difficult.
have been two very heady years. Yeah,
Correct.
without a doubt.
Although I think we've had 8 instances of back-to-back 20% years since the 50s.
Yes.
Right? It's not that uncommon.
Yes, and I think one thing that we have to kind of appreciate is that when someone says the median return for the S&P is like 9%, there's actually very few plots that are 9. It's either up 15 to 20 or down 10. So I'll take the 15 over the down 10.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Let's talk soon. Thank you.
Yep,
Good to see you,
thanks.
Tom Lee.
As we head to break, here's our roadmap.